Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amelia and welcome back into my 2023 reading journal. After this, there's only going to be one more video showcasing this journal, which is just going to be a little flip through to show everything that I did in this journal this year. But today we are, of course, filling in the final month of the year with all of my reads and pages read as I am doing here. So December, it was a decent reading month. I didn't finish like a ton of books, but I read some decently long ones and a lot of ones that I rated really highly, which is probably a better indicator of the quality of the reading month than simply a number of books that I read. But I ended up reading 2,624 pages. The amount I've read has definitely declined as the year has gone on, but I also think that my ratings overall have improved. So I don't know if it's just because I have gotten better at choosing books that I'm gonna like, and they tend to be longer books, but I don't really know. I don't know where I'm going with this sentence. Um, but now we are on over into the next page and starting on the first book spread of the month, which is, of course, for Blood of Dragons by Robin Hobb. And we are, as usual, sort of sticking with the decoration elements that are used on the front page. But in this one, I decided to take the red color that is in the castle's flag and make a little dragon, because, you know, Dragon Haven. And then I'm just going to be wrapping the dragon in a bunch of vines that I used on like the front to go around like the windowsills and stuff. But we're going around the dragon, just, you know, it looks interesting. But Blood of Dragons, let's talk about it. So this is the conclusion to the Rainwild Chronicles, which is the final series that I had to read in the Realm of the Elderlings Greater series, although I think if you're reading it chronologically, it is second to last. So you have I can't remember what that last trilogy is called. But anyway, I was not expecting to love Rainwild Chronicles as much as I did, but it just kind of blew me away. Oh, the cat is here. If you hear any little sounds, Mimi's just tromping around on my desk, and there's not much I can do about that. Well, anyways, I was talking about Blood of Dragons. To me, at its core, I would say that Blood of Dragons is really a story about belonging and about finding oneself in the midst of a world that is determined to decide who you are for you. And this is, of course, as usual, done through the characters. Hobb's character work is, of course, stunning. It always is. It never disappoints, even if I am at the moment not happy with what the characters are doing. It all sort of comes together in their general arcs, and she does such an amazing job making characters that are complex and flawed in very human ways. And their flaws always make their strengths more interesting and believable in like the balance between the two of them. I would say that, yeah, Hobb makes very balanced characters. Like, you'll see them do things that are difficult for people to do, you know, make hard choices and save people and save whatever, but they also have the flaws and weaknesses to counterbalance that in a way that just makes sense for the character and the story and always makes them feel so real. So in Blood of Dragons, Hobb does an amazing job setting up this sort of grand conflict with the Duke of Chalced and his desire for dragon parts to like heal himself. But then she manages to balance it with threats that are more close to home and perhaps relatable to the average person. Like, we have greed and domestic violence and homophobia. And she made one of the side villains so horrible that I genuinely felt happy when he died. I was reading it in, I don't remember, a reading vlog or something, and I'm just like talking about it and smiling. It's like I've never been so pleased at the death of a character, and like the way he died was honestly just so fitting. Alright, but we are now on to the spread for Knife of Dreams. And after a long time sort of, you know, dealing with the middle wheel of time slump, I very much enjoyed Knife of Dreams. Overall, I found the pacing to be much improved, and we had an interesting plot with, like, for the most part, good character work. A lot of the plot points that we've been kind of working through for a while, so, like, I can't really say without spoiling stuff, so I'll just skip that part. But a lot of the things we've been talking about got wrapped up in a satisfying way or moved forward. My only real complaint would be with how Jordan handles Elaine's pregnancy. I think it's just pretty clear that he has no idea what it's like to be pregnant, and obviously, I mean, I don't either, but like, and he just really leans into the whole pregnant women are super emotional thing, which wasn't my favorite. But anyway, we are already on to my Legends and Latte spread, so I will just skip over the rest of my thoughts on that. So for Legends and Lattes, I ended up doing a full spread, and this wasn't necessarily because I had a lot to say about it. As you can see, one half of it is just going to be a drawing, but perhaps shallowly, I wanted the year's reading journal to end on like a full filled in spread, so I have 2 more books after this, and I needed to make this 2 pages to make it even. So it's 2 pages. But Legends and Lattes was, as marketed, a very sweet and enjoyable read. We meet Viv, who is an orc with a colorful past, which makes her a very interesting main character, as she sort of struggles to find a balance between who she wants to be and who she has been, and she struggles to make choices that will put her on the path that she is trying to get on now and keep her off of her old path. And the plot, I felt, really worked for the vibe and the characters, but it was definitely secondary to the vibe, which I liked. I loved all the descriptions of them, like, restoring the coffee shop and building up the menu as they learn about what works for their customers and what their customers want. I found the descriptions to be very vivid and evocative, and I could just, like, smell the shop, and made me want to make coffee and croissants or cinnamon rolls or something just tasty. And I really also enjoyed the found family element and how sort of Viv learned to be able to sort of rely on some of these other people and let them be a part of her life, And I loved how everyone was able to kind of like contribute to helping Viv stay on the path that she has decided that she wants for her life instead of sort of drifting back. I wouldn't say that it's like the world's most exceptional book or anything, but if you want something sort of short, something sweet, I would definitely recommend it. I really enjoyed my time reading it. I just don't think that it's like, and not that every book has to be, but it's not something that I'm gonna like think about for a long time to come. I can see myself rereading it like every winter or something, just as like a sweet little comforting thing. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. In terms of books with amazing vibes, I think Night Circus is better, but I do appreciate the energy here. And so I am just now filling out the spread for this book. On the opposite page, I tried to do like a window sort of looking into a little coffee shop. It does feel maybe a little empty. I don't know if I should like try to find a really pale gray and color in that whole page to make the bricks feel a little bit less alone. But I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out, but I kind of wish I had a lighter color to use for the wall behind the table, because I feel like it's a bit too intensely green, but it is what it is. It's pretty cute overall, I would say. But that is pretty much it for my spread for Legends and Lattes. So we're going to be turning over the page now and moving on to my spreads for Blade itself and Empire of Gold. Now, I made a mistake by including Empire of Gold in this reading journal. It should be in next year's, because I finished it at like 1:30 in the morning on the 1st, and I did not include it in any of my like reading stats for this year or my book count. However, I started like drawing the spread before I thought about this, so I just decided to include it. So I'm not going to include it as a spread in next year's reading journal, but it will be under my book spread there. But anyway, we are currently working on the spread for The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, which I ended up giving 4.5 stars. This sort of theme I don't think really works very well for Blade itself because it's totally different vibes, much more sort of peaceful and nice, whereas Blade itself is grimdark. It's my first foray into a grimdark, unless you count. I've read Song of Ice and Fire, which was pretty dark and graphic, but that was a while ago, before this whole return to reading. So yeah, like this was my first foray into grimdark for a long time, and I wasn't really sure that it would be my thing. And while the more sort of graphic scenes of like torture specifically were not my favorite, I did enjoy the rest of what the book had to offer. I was surprised how invested I got in what all the characters were doing, despite most of them being bad people in one way or another. I think it was just because Abercrombie managed to toe the line between the irredeemable and not, or and redeemable, and keep them all like just on the safe side. So it kind of feels like if they could just make like a few good choices and change a bit for the better, they could become worth rooting for. Now, I'm not really sure that that's what Abercrombie is going to do, but it will be really interesting to see sort of where he goes with their characters. And I also found the plot and the pacing to be quite well done, setting up a lot of interesting, bits and pieces that we're gonna have to explore in the next book. And by bits and pieces, I mean like there are a bunch of them are going on like this big quest, and there's also like a war starting, and we got several different POVs, most of which have kind of met each other, but there's one sort of group that hasn't. So it'll be interesting to see how they come into the next book and whether or not all of our POVs combine, which is something I typically enjoy. All right, so as I was saying, let's move on to Empire of Gold, which is, as I said, not technically supposed to be in this book, but here it is, and we're gonna make do with it now. So for the spread for this one, I'm of course maintaining the same elements of the sort of arches, the vines, and the leaves, but I also, as usual, try to incorporate some element from the book itself, whether it's themes, motifs, or like the cover design. And the covers for the Daevabad trilogy each kind of have like cities on them, and City of Empire of Gold is no exception. We've got a really beautiful sort of gold cityscape with a lot of domes and things. So I decided it would be interesting to try and incorporate that in one of my arches, and I would say that it worked. The problem is, like, with this style, I'm not using any fine liners, it's just the colors. And so I think we could have had a lot more detail if I was using fine liners. But as it was using just the Crayola markers, we did lose a lot of that detail, but I did my best. I used a few different shades of like yellowy, goldy, coppery kind of colors, and then like layered them, as well as using like 2 strokes of the same marker to make darker lines that sort of stand out but are also like within the same color, if that makes sense. And I would say that overall I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I think I could have done it better perhaps, but yeah, I mean, to make it fit with the theme, I think I pretty much did the best that I could. And yeah, no, I'm happy with it. But Empire of Gold, let's talk about that a little bit. So I ended up giving it 4 stars, and as I mentioned, it is the conclusion to the Daevabad trilogy. I was overall pretty happy with how this book played out and concluded the series. I was kind of worried that when we got Nari in proximity with both of the men she's loved, we would get like an overdramatic YA love triangle thing going on, but I actually felt that the whole thing was handled quite maturely and that we did not really get that whole thing going on. I really didn't know what she was going to do with Dara at the end, because like though he was brainwashed and like enslaved when he did a lot of the terrible things that he did, I still sort of found it hard to look at him as a good person. And my man definitely has a lot to work on, therapy would certainly be in order for him. But I'm glad sort of how his storyline played out. I think it worked for the story and to avoid love triangle nonsense. My only real complaint, I think, is that Nari's characterization can sometimes be a bit weak, and what she does sometimes conflicts with what she's thinking, specifically in regard to her feelings. Like, we'll have her pretending, or she's thinking to herself, oh, she's so good at concealing her feelings or ignoring and repressing them. But then, like, compared to what she's actually, like, feeling and, like, described as feeling, she's not. All right, so let's just do a quick flip through. I definitely thought I had recorded filling this spread out, but apparently I either didn't or it got lost or deleted somehow. But here's my month in review. We got 2,624 pages, 4.6 average stars, and Wednesday was my most often read day. Well, the amount day I read the most, anyway. And then we have, of course, our little title page, which I should probably glue together or something. Our pages are red. Then we have Blood of Dragons, Knife of Dreams, Legends and Lattes, Blade itself, and Empire of Gold. So that is everything for my December reading journal. As I said, there'll be one more video in this journal, but that is everything that I have time for today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.